Where the right-wing media is headed, one sign, Will Sommer says, of where the right-wing media is headed, Ben Shapiro protege Brett Cooper desperately trying to avoid criticizing Nick Fuentes in an NPR interview. That's pretty crazy.
Take for granted as part of this conversation that people have a right to say what they want to say.
Yes.
There is then the matter of what Nick Fuentes and some other people have.
I can't believe she was on Morning Edition, dude. That's crazy. That's my show.
Said. Fuentes, this is a quote from a video in an interview with Alex Jones. Jewish elite gangsters that run our country. And in the Tucker Carlson interview, he talks about how he feels that Jews are extremely organized across borders and more loyal to Israel than to their home countries, which is a long-time anti-Semitic.
It's so weird. I've been listening to that guy. I've never seen that guy's face, and I've been listening to him for like 15 years. Yeah. I'm Steve Inskeep. I'm Steve Inskeep looking ass. He doesn't have a face for radio, by the way. He's a handsome guy. I didn't realize. He has a face for television.
Kind of idea. When we get down to the substance of what Nick Fuentes says, do you agree with it?
You know, I don't agree with Nick Fuentes on everything. I don't agree with anybody on everything.
There's a difference between saying I don't agree with everybody on everything versus Nick Fuentes specifically on his opinion on, the international Jewry and how their loyalties lie with Israel first and foremost and primarily. That's a crazy cop-out answer. But the very fact that Brett Cooper is making that crazy cop-out answer in this situation implies that she is too afraid to actually criticize Nick Fuentes openly on NPR. That's crazy.
I think that what especially older generations need to learn about Nick Fuentes is that he says it himself, he's an edgelord. He says things that are intentionally inflammatory. He knows that a lot of people are not going to agree with him. He knows that it is incredibly inflammatory. And honestly, I don't pay much attention to it.
Do you think that Jewish gangsters are controlling the country?
No, not really. I am concerned about the impact of Israel in our country. I think that a lot of young people are. And I'm concerned about it in the way of, young people's biggest concern right now on both sides of the aisle is the economy. We are concerned about being able to buy homes. We are concerned about affordability. And so when we see the news, when we see how much money is being sent.
I mean, low-key, this is how I would answer if I wanted to defend Nick Fuentes. Like, if I wanted to sidestep the Nick Fuentes condemnation, this is exactly how I would answer this question. So, yeah, she's very deliberately trying to sidestep criticism of Nick Fuentes in this.
Overseas, to Ukraine, to Israel, whatever it may be, my generation is concerned. We are upset. It's not because of anti-Semitism. It is not because we, dislike people because of their race or their beliefs or their creed. It is simply like, this is what we're focusing on. Like, at the end of the day, I think I and so much of my generation is just tired of it. Like, I want to focus on American
There's more Brett Cooper, Nick Fuentes clips? That's crazy.
Issues. And so when we spend all day talking and bickering about, foreign affairs and where all the money is going, it's like, I want to get back to how are we going to make life affordable for my generation? And if you're going to be focusing on what's going on overseas and making that your big priority, like, I honestly...
Yeah, she's talking about Nick Fuentes like Zoran was talking about me. It's crazy. Oh, I don't agree with everything he says, but we got to talk to everybody.
To be totally transparent, and I think most of my generation would agree, I don't care. And so as a result, I don't pay much attention to it. I direct my attention to American issues, to positive things. I amplify voices that I believe are good and truthful and wholesome. And that is what I focus on.
With the kinds of things that he says continuously about Jews?
Number one, because so many people have said not to listen to him. And they've said that, he is the equivalent of the Antichrist. And again, when you point at something, you are directing attention to it. And secondly, because he's become a meme, he is huge on social media. People are not watching his show in its entirety. We are seeing clips of him. They're seeing the jokes that he made. I saw a thread on X recently, and it was a person who is Jewish, I actually believe lives in Israel, is a Zionist, and said, I sat down and I watched a Nick Fuentes stream in its entirety. And he was like, I am so embarrassed to say that I laughed. He's like, he's a good communicator, he's funny, and I obviously disagree with a lot of the things that he says, and it goes against my, my religion and my beliefs as a Zionist, whatever it is. But he said, but I kind of got it because.
Yeah, because if you're a Zionist in Israel, you are also a fascist. It makes sense. Yeah, wow, I can't believe it. Jewish Nazi likes anti-Jewish Nazi. This is shocking.
He's funny. And so I think a lot of people are not actually watching his show in its entirety, but they are consuming his memes and the TikToks that people make of him. And that is incredibly, incredibly powerful when it comes to my generation. Because if you can get social media, if you can bring people in through comedy and relatability, that will speak to them.
This is another problem with the expanding permission structure for unlimited white supremacist commentary, right? This is the power of the bully pulpit. The problem with Charlottesville wasn't that they came out and marched and said Jews will not replace us. They just did it too early. It turns out you had to let it cool a little bit. You had to give it a little bit of time. You know what I mean? Because in like 2016, 2017, it seems like Americans were not ready for it. But in 2025, I think Americans are ready for it. And what I mean by that is something that even Zaid Jilani talked about right here. The president outright banned people from 17 countries from coming to America and expresses Hitler-esque rhetoric towards entire ethnic groups. And we are supposed to be obsessed with some streamer. Fuentes is a sideshow at best. What I'm getting from all of this is that if he just picked on brown people, maybe he could even be president. And while I don't agree with Zaid all the time, this is one of those moments where he actually has a banger, I'm afraid, because it's true. It's so true that it's something that even Nick Fuentes brings up sometimes, where he says like, oh, when I talk about Jews the way Randy Fine talks about Muslims, all of a sudden I'm the villain. But you guys don't have any issue with Randy Fine talking that way about Muslims in general. Now, Nick Fuentes talks about Muslims like that too, for the record. But the difference is, it's who you're not allowed to talk about that way. That's what the problem is here. So many of these guys in mainstream outlets and so many of these people are basically creating this weird environment that you can say whatever the fuck you want about any other group. As long as you're not saying those things about Jewish people, you're fine. You can get away with it. That's where we're at right now. And what a lot of people don't understand, it is actually inappropriate to talk about all groups like that. But because they've completely dropped the ball on dealing with that shit, completely dropped the ball on Islamophobia, and as a matter of fact, promoted Islamophobia over and over again, of course that's going to feed into the cycle of anti-Semitism as well. Because people are going to say, well, we've been saying this about Muslims nonstop. Why can't I say this about Jews? That is a big part of why a lot of people tune into Nick Fuentes, because they go, well, this is the logical endpoint of my worldview. When the president is talking about how people are coming from shithole countries openly in an unapologetic manner, why would anybody care when there's a Nazi out there saying that the international Jewry is actually dominating American politics? No average person that thinks what Trump is saying is like kind of offensive, but ultimately seemingly fine, is going to look at what Nick Fuentes is saying and go, well, that's a bridge too far. They're not going to do that. If you have spent years and years talking about mass migration has been propped up by a secretive group of people, liberal elites, going from that to that secretive group of liberal elites are all Jews is a very, very quick trip.
And I think that's the part that a lot of conservatives have not been able to keep up with.
And when Ted Cruz says, this senator who had this exchange with you says, now is a time for choosing. Either you call out this guy or you're a coward and you're complicit. Is he right at all?
I think that as Americans, you should be allowed to listen to whoever you want to listen to. I don't think that I need to sit here and condemn anyone either way. There are things that Nick says that I don't agree with. There are things that Ted Cruz says that I don't agree with. I'm not going to sit here and condemn either of them. I don't know if either of them actually like me. Nick has said that he does not like me at certain times and then he loves me. I was in a movie with Ted Cruz and we have had conversations and then he calls me an angry woman on X. Like I don't take it personally. I'm not concerned. I'm not going to condemn anyone. And I don't think that we should be sitting here telling people what they need to believe or who they need to condemn. We should be focused on positive solutions, on driving a positive future for Gen Z. We're about to be the hugest, most significant voting bloc. And you need to get Gen Z and hold on and provide solutions for them to have a better life.
about this controversy among conservatives about Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, anti-Semitism, the Heritage Foundation. We could go on and on. I guess broadly, more specifically, the question is what to do about Nick Fuentes, if anything. And more broadly, the question is what to do about anti-Semitism in the Republican Party. What have you thought about that?
I think at the end of the day, my issue is with free speech. You should be allowed to say whatever you want. And we should encourage people to share their ideas. And if you don't like them, ignore them. I think that is a major problem, honestly, on both sides of the aisle. I think that we have forgotten the Streisand effect and forgotten how important that is. And we've gotten into the habit of, if we don't like something, if we think that something is incredibly morally wrong and backwards, we don't just, it's a balance here. You should talk about it and share your opinions and share something that is positive and empowering. What is your solution? What is the alternative that you are providing that is good and wholesome that people should adopt? And then there's a side of people.
Deplatforming is successful as long as you remain committed to deplatforming. Now that Nick Fuentes does have a platform, I don't think you can actually stop it by trying to deplatform him. Once someone does have a sizable enough platform, it's over. It's any kind of attempt or any kind of conversation around deplatforming that person is only going to feed more into their fan base. He's already been deplatformed. That's why he's on Rumble. No, but that's my point. He was deplatformed on every major platform. He was not on YouTube. He was not on Twitter. He was not on TikTok. And then Twitter deliberately unbanned him. Elon Musk deliberately unbanned him. And even though he wasn't allowed to have a YouTube channel, there were other content creators who were actually offering him a platform even before he got unbanned on Twitter. Of course, I'm talking about Destiny. And then slowly but surely, he was able to claw himself back to relevancy. But the major blow was when Twitter unbanned him.
Who just point fingers and scream at things and just draw more attention to things. And I think that for Gen Z, what people on both sides of the political aisle need to realize is the more that you tell my generation not to watch something, not to look into something, not to listen to something, that something is bad, or censor somebody, we're going to go look for that content because we're interested. I think that's just normal human nature, but especially for my generation, that's a bit more rebellious as young people are. So I think that is part of it. Again, the free speech issue is incredibly important to me. You know, we have conservatives who have been banging the drum about cancel culture for 10 years at this point.
True.
Saying, you know, you should be allowed to say whatever you want. You should not lose your job over your beliefs. You should not be canceled or ostracized because of the things that you say. Say whatever you want. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Move on if you don't like it. And suddenly we have huge conservative figures, people like Mark Levin, going on air and saying, we will cancel you. We will deplatform you. That's not like that. That does not align with my values. If it aligns with theirs, that's totally fine. But the thing that I wanted to call out was you've built a career saying one thing. You've gained people's trust by saying we will fight against cancel culture. We will not deplatform people. Say whatever you want and we will duke it out on the stage through debates. And now you're saying, I don't like your ideas, so I'm going to cancel you.
What was Brett Cooper's take on people doing mean Charlie Kirk memes? I wonder how she felt about free speech at the moment. Oh, yeah. I wonder. Amanda Seyfried says, I'm not going to apologize for calling Charlie Kirk hateful. I mean, for f***'s sake. I commented on one thing. I said something that was based on actual reality, actual footage, and actual quotes. What I said was pretty damn factual, and I'm free to have an opinion. Oh, hell yes.